So I'm going to say some things about Asier, and then I will just let him take the floor, because I'm sure you want to hear from him more. So Asier is Spanish. We know each other from quite some time, I would say since 2016 maybe. And he did his undergrad in Salamanca, very good city, and then he moved to Elche in South Spain to do his PhD. But after that he moved to Netherlands, where he is doing a postdoc, both at the Netherlands Institute for the Study of Crime and Law Enforcement, the NSCR, that criminologists know very well. And he's also part of the Center of Expertise in Cybersecurity at the Hague University of Applied Sciences. So he has two different affiliations in the Netherlands. He's a criminologist, but he does research in applied social sciences to better understand cybercrime, cyber offending, and cyber victimization as well. We have published together some papers in the past, but he has done way more important work since then. Just to mention a few examples, he's published in the Journal of Experimental Criminology, Computers in Human Behavior, Journal of Contemporary Criminal Justice, Journal of Criminology, Medium Behavior, Crime Science, and other journals. So top-notch scholar, and he's also very much involved in the open research and open science movement, which is something that we all need to become embedded with in the social sciences. So welcome Asier, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much, David, for your presentation, for your nice words. Hi everybody. Is my voice properly projected at the end of the room? Yeah. Yeah, but not much more to say about me after David's presentation. I think he really overdid it, by the way. I'm here to talk about the use of online ads. All of you know what online ads are, right? So you are online, you see an ad, that's an online ad. Sometimes they are pop-ups, sometimes they are fixed to the screen. And the police has been thinking that maybe there's some use for these ads beyond being annoying, right? Maybe we can put them to good use for preventive purposes for cybercrime. So here I'm going to talk about the use of these online ads in structured campaigns as part of a cybercrime prevention strategy. And this has been done since 2017, 2018. It started with the National Crime Agency here in the UK. And, well, later the Dutch copied it. It was a consensual copy. And started implementing that in the Netherlands. And now this strategy is spreading elsewhere. There are many other countries in Europe, but even internationally, across the pond, they're also starting to implement these campaigns because they see the potential they have for prevention. And well, this research has been carried out together with Rutger Leukveld, widely known cybercriminologist focused on the human factor in cybercrime, and also together with the Cyber Offender Prevention Squad, the COPS team of the Netherlands Police, which is the national Dutch police. All right, and this research, of course, like every other research, starts with a problem. And the problem was first identified by the NCA in this report called Pathways into Cybercrime, published in 2017. Please take a while to read it. Basically what they say, what the NCA says, is that nowadays offenders need very little skill to do cybercrime. And they can purchase online services to carry out cybercrime, which is cybercrime as a service. And one example are Hooters, which are platforms to launch distributed denial of service attacks. These type of cyber-dependent crimes, crimes that are used, that use IT to target IT and computers. That consists in launching huge amounts of information so as to flood a system and render it unusable for its legitimate users. So maybe you recognize you're on a website, clicking somewhere, nothing responds, the website's like frozen. Maybe the website is being targeted by one of these DDoS attacks. And you can hire these services with a very small payment. I'm talking about 10 pounds. Or maybe, they have all sorts of subscription packages. You can subscribe monthly. It's like if you have a Netflix account, but you subscribe to Google. And then online you can find all sorts of tutorials and materials guides, handbooks that you can simply follow the instructions that someone else has laid for you in order to get acquainted on how these services work, how you can buy, how can you use the software they provide. And then you become a cyber criminal, but you don't know nothing about cybercrime, really, right? Or IT. It's just anyone can do this. You only have to find it, right? And here's the thing: you have to find it. So there are many ways in which someone can become a cyber criminal, and these initiation points for cybercrime are what we call the pathways into cybercrime. There are many, like it could be, for example, financial pressure, right? Could be deviant peers, could be. But another one is simply Google, searching through Google. What do we do when we want to learn stuff, how to do stuff? We Google it. What do cyber criminals do when they want to know how to carry a crime? They Google it. They are no different from us. Some of them have more expertise, and because they've done this step in the past, they don't need to do it anymore. But the ones that are getting started tend to rely on Google. First steps you take into cybercrime, you Google, what is this cybercrime? How do I do this? How do I launch this attack, right? In this example, I typed in Google how to DDoS. DDoS can sometimes be used as a verb. And you can see in the drop-down suggestions, the autocomplete function from Google, you already see how to do someone with their IP, with a command line on Discord, an Xbox, a Minecraft server, and so on. And if you continue digging, eventually you might find one of these services. This is a booter. These services offer distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS, for hire. And they usually, it's fine because they use this word stressor as a way of adding a layer of legitimacy to the service they advertise. Because they think that stressor makes more sense, is more legitimate. If you say, this is just a stressor service for the infrastructure of your company, we're just stressing the infrastructure of your company, the capacity of your company. But it's fine because in the description they even say the more stable and reliable IP stressor on the booter market. And booter is the word that we use for when these things are used for criminal purposes, right? So they know, we know, they won't fool anyone. But as you can see, the website looks like a normal website. It's just an easy one, has a menu at the top where you can register and you can log in. There are pricing options. There's a free package. There's some more information about the website. Here are the pricing, and in the bottom you can even see a few statistics in which they boast about the service they provide. So they say, hey, we've launched over 1 million attacks. Currently, we're running 10 attacks, and our bandwidth capacity is over 1,000 gigabytes per second, which is enough to take down most services. The thing is, people, picture this. Someone's googling about DDoS, how to carry out DDoS attacks. Eventually lands on one of these pages. This is in the clear web, by the way. There's no dark web. You don't need Tor to find this. It's just Google. You get there. You don't even know this is illegal, right? It's on the clear web. It's in Google. I don't know. Looks like it appears to be legitimate. If you don't know that borders is something that is associated to illegal services, you think, okay, this is fine. I'll just buy one. I'll just try it for free. The moment you hit the attack button, what you usually do is download software, and then it has a graphic user interface, just like an application, and then you introduce an IP address, you select bandwidth or something, and you press on attack, and that IP address will start getting DDoSed. The moment you click on attack, you're committing a crime. But this is something that many people do not know. That's why it becomes a pathway into cybercrime. Many people is not aware that DDoSing someone else is a crime. And this is because sometimes targets of these DDoS are game players. So people that are playing games online in a competition, sometimes they get kicked out of the game at some point, and they don't know what happened. And then when they come back, I just got kicked out, and someone else tells them, you just got DDoSed. DDoS, you say, what's that? And they start looking for it. Oh, so I got DDoS, so maybe I can DDoS some of the players. So they start playing around with this, and eventually they stop targeting other players and start targeting something else. And at some point, they target the government websites, and and it escalates really quickly. But yeah, so this is what you will see in if you find if you reach many of these border services. There's a joint law enforcement collaboration international one called Power Off here, whose aim is take down all these border services and arrest the administrators and sometimes users that are very prolific. And they've seized all these domains, about 50 something, and now they have these blast pages when you go to the domain in which the border used to be hosted. Now this is what you see. This website has been seized, right? This is a classic cyber operation by law enforcement. How do these borders work? So imagine there's an offender that wants to target a system. System can be anything. Can be a website. Can be a web server. Can be a network. Can be can be the server of a gaming company. What they do is what they had to do in the past. They had to infect with malware multiple computers so as to be able to control them and command them remotely, creating what we call a botnet. So these computers become bots or zombies at the service of the bot herder, which is the offender. And what the offender would then do is coordinate all these computers and send traffic, huge amounts of traffic at the same time at the target system. So the target system cannot process all this information and get stuck, right? What we explained at the beginning. Now what's happening is that cybercriminals who build this infrastructure create an application on top of it, so you didn't even have to do any of this, and they sell it as a service in the way of border services. And then you can buy the services using your credit card. You can use PayPal. You don't even need Bitcoin. Most of the times, there are services that take Bitcoin, right? But you don't even need to do that. So it's fairly accessible, it's fairly easy to find, it's fairly easy to do. So more people are doing it. All right, so this was my introduction into pathways into cybercrime using borders. And now I'll tell a little bit about how can we use online ad campaigns to cut this pathway into cybercrime. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about our research project, which are divided here in 3 studies. You will see 2, but they're actually 3. And then what's next, which is next steps where currently we're focusing on Google, but we are also at the same time in parallel developing a research project to also use ads in YouTube, because that's another way in which people learn. It's not just Googling, now they also look into YouTube for tutorials, for video tutorials, step by step, right? Someone saying, hey, yeah, open this program, enter this command, and you're launching a DDoS attack to yourself. Now you only have to learn to do this to other people, right? And then we can open it up for questions. Please, David, let me know if I'm over time or yeah. Right, so Google as a pathway into cybercrime to reach cybercriminal service. So if criminals are using this platform to find cybercrime services and use them, why not using the same platform to try to divert them, to try to deter them and divert them to pro-social alternatives? This is what the police thought. And what they do is pay Google to have their own ads related to risky keywords such as how to DDoS, so that when someone searches for how to DDoS, they see one of these ads. These ads are in Dutch. They are equivalent ads running, I think at the moment in the UK. But the translation, so you get an idea, the first one means DDoS ruins it for everybody. So you don't want your friends to play anymore because you want to play a prank. The second one is the classic message that the police would use, which is a DDoS attack is illegal. Carrying out DDoS attack is illegal in the Netherlands under the criminal code. And then you have more alternatives, right? So do you want to DDoS again? Learn more about DDoS attacks and their impact on gaming, and play fair because losers DDoS. Win fairly in esports competition to train your gaming skills, right? So they try different ways of communicating which one works best. So we also try to work to understand that. This is what happens if you search in Google for one of these, what the police and us as a research team think is a risky term in Google. You see one of these ads. Now if you click on the ads, this is what you see. Now the landing page is different, but this is what you used to see. So this is a page in which you can see, you can read what a DDoS attack is, what the consequences are for you and for society, and what alternatives you can encounter for pro-social behavior, for example, landing a job in cybersecurity, or doing a cybersecurity workshop, or a capture the flag exercise. Things that young people interested in IT will tend to like. And these landing pages sometimes feature a video and an image, and we can try to make them attractive for people to try to at least stay there a while, read what we have to say, and if you still want to carry on and use that, go ahead. But if not, we hope that this message plus the ad might be enough for you to think twice and perhaps do something else. So for any law enforcement agency personnel in the room, how do campaigns work? This might be interesting for you. I think there are more or less 3 phases that you need to consider to set up a campaign. The first one is the designing part, and well, you have these kind of questions that you have to answer and the related actions that you can take. I think Zoe will distribute the slides after the event, so I will not talk too much about this because I would just read it. Then it's the second step of deployment. When you have designed your campaign, you simply deploy it in the wild, and then, very importantly, you evaluate the performance of the website. Like, who did it reach in terms of how much interaction did it generate, did it reach the right population, and very importantly, for crime reduction purposes, did the campaign actually work in reducing cybercrime or cybercriminal behavior. Right, so that you get an idea more or less how much interaction these campaigns do generate. And if we consider that when someone searches for one of these high-risk terms, we count it as 1 impression, and when someone clicks on one of the ads, we count it as 1 click. 2 campaigns that ran for over 200 days generated about 147,000 impressions and about 11,000 clicks. And the cost for maintaining these campaigns running for all this time was about 23,000 euros for the police, and this is public money. Right? Okay. So like I said, we started with Google, and we thought that we could run a series of projects to try to understand how these campaigns work, what was the best way of implementing these campaigns, whether these campaigns reached the right population, and whether they worked in reducing cybercrime. So yeah, we planned a series of studies in that, more or less like this, and now at the end we are taking a turn, and we are also going to try to repeat the process, but in YouTube. YouTube requires a complete different approach, because the ads you put on Google are textual, right? The ads you have on YouTube are videos, complete different way of communicating. So that's already a challenge. And targeting in YouTube also works in a different way than it does in Google. So still working on that, but quite interesting. These are the campaigns that I will be talking about today. In the horizontal axis, a timeline. In the y-axis, countries that implemented campaigns. The shaded areas are the times in which the campaigns were active in the respective country. As you can see, it started with the Netherlands. Oh, if the UK was here, it would be an entire grey row. But there's someone else doing research on that. For the Netherlands, it started in early 2021, the first campaign. Late 2021, a second campaign, and a third campaign. There was a lot of hype about it, and all the European law enforcement wanted in, and yeah, not really coordinated. They coordinated by the Netherlands, but with the support of Europol. That's why everybody came together. We also launched a third campaign in a coordinated way these countries. As you can see, more or less it started at the same time, it stopped at the same time, started again, and so on. So yeah, lots of data. We collected lots of data, super interesting insights. And we started asking questions. So first thing we wanted to know is, all right, what searches trigger the campaigns? Because we wanted to learn more about our target audience. Who is at risk of carrying out a DDoS attack? Who is at risk of finding one of these cybercrime as a service orders? So we'll start looking at the searches, at the actual searches they introduced in Google. Campaigns were based on literature, on previous findings. We pretty much agreed that the campaigns should target young people, generally below 24, but also below 34, just to be sure. In the Netherlands, because this was a national campaign, and we kind of knew that most people who engage in this kind of behavior are males, but we also wanted to target females to, this was also an empirical question for us, so we wanted to also figure it out. And there's the thing. So when we targeted the campaigns using estimated demographics by Google. When you have a Google account, sometimes you can include information about yourself. How old are you? Which gender do you identify with? And so on. And then you also visit websites while you're logging in your Google account. And that information Google uses to estimate the age interval, gender, and all the demographics of users that use the services. And so that you know, about half of the users have unknown demographics. And it's not only people who do not include information in their profiles about themselves, or it's not only that the information Google has is not enough to provide an accurate estimate of what the demographics of these people are, but it's also minors that end up in that category, because to protect minors, Google classifies them as unknown. Mm-hmm. We know minors are one of the main populations at risk for doing this, because they start with gaming, right? And minors are really into gaming. They start with gaming, and then that escalates. So what we found is that between the users, looking at users that did not have unknown demographics, most known users in our campaigns had between 18 and 24 years old, which is consistent with literature, and also about 83% to 92% of the known users were male. This means users that search for at-risk, what we consider at-risk keywords, but also click on the ads. So if you ask an AI bot to generate an image of your target population, this is what Imagine would come up with. If you fit it like, picture a Dutch youngster of between 18 and 24 years old, interested in gaming. So more or less this is the kind of people that we're targeting with the campaigns, right? We also looked at word frequency in the searches. We looked at the searches that these users were performing, and also at the language in which these searches were introduced. You would see this how what you would expect. So people usually looking for DDoS. Aanval stands for attack in Dutch. And then you have stressor, which is, like we said, the name given to booters to try to give booters a more legitimate aspect. Booter. And IP booter, free stressor service, IP stressor, best stressor service, and so on. And in the background you see some gaming stuff. You see Minecraft in both, I think. You also see some consoles like PS4, Xbox. So there's the gaming component also. The gaming component also appears in our searches. About 50% of the searches were introduced in English, some form of English, and about 30% some form of Dutch. I'm saying some form of Dutch because we did this with we detected the language automatically, and sometimes we got hits like, this search is in German, but when you look at it, you realize it's actually Dutch, right? So this is, take this with a pinch of salt, because it's not as accurate as I would like. And there were about 17% of the searches in which it was basically impossible to tell which language they are being introduced. For example, 0x booter, what's that? 0x, what's that? It's just slang they use or names for specific booters or services. It's very difficult to tell which language was used. All right, so if you look at the top searches in both campaigns, you see that there's intent in the searches to use cybercrime services. This is one of the main things that we want to look at. If people targeted by our campaigns, the ones who search for stuff and click on the ads, show some kind of intent with their searches, then we are probably reaching the right population with the ads, or at least partially. And what you see is that the search that generated the most engagement in the first campaign was how to DDoS. Who searches for how to DDoS? Someone who wants to understand how to DDoS, right? Second one is IP booter panel. There are many there that show really an intent of engaging in cybercriminal behavior. And there's some exceptions, like for example, wat is een DDoS aanval here, which means what is a DDoS attack. And that's the top result in the second campaign, for example. What is a DDoS attack? This is probably just general population, I don't know, writing a paper for school or something, or heard the term somewhere in the news and trying to figure out what this means. But by a DDoS attack, DDoS website, I've stressed it for free, how to DDoS, and free stressor, and web stressor, those are searches that really show intent by users to carry out DDoS attacks. In fact, one of the top searches was web stressor, which in 2018, when it was taken down by law enforcement, was the biggest stressor in the world. Now it's taken down, but people still looking for it online because they hear about it from other colleagues. Maybe they see a reference in a forum, in an old forum thread, and they say, interesting. So they still look for it, and when you look for that, you probably want to purchase services, right? And there are a couple of more, IP stressor and free stressor, that were still active when the campaigns were running, but were taken down last year in December 2022 in the second wave of Operation Power. So what this means is that Google searches might help us identify active cybercrime services, such as this. Okay, so we also looked at search buttons in the searches. Imagine you have a search like how to DDoS. You can break it down in 2 bigrams. Bigrams are sequences of 2 words. So how to DDoS, you can break it in 2. You can break it in how to and in 2 DDoS, right? And connect those with arrows. If you do that with all the searches that we have for the campaigns, with the top 50 searches we have for the campaigns, you would see something like this. So these are terms that are linked when they are a sequence, when they are introduced together. For example, DDoS, arrow, anval, attack, means that someone entered DDoS attack, right? Some other person entered DDoS attack trans IP. Trans IP is a Dutch service provider from the Netherlands. And here you can see all the stuff. Let's see the patterns more clearly. So a couple of things I want to show here. First one, we mentioned gaming. Gaming might be a pathway into cybercrime. We mentioned this. What we see here is that people is searching for DDoS Minecraft, DDoS Discord server, Arc server, Apex Legends, booter Xbox, booter PS4. So there's people looking for booters, for using booters with and at the same time targeting specific gaming services. Sometimes law enforcement don't know where to start, right? There's so many games. Which one is more popular at the moment? There can be many, you know. Fortnite, for example. I don't know. Which one is the flavor of the month? I don't know. But if you use Google searches, you might be able to identify which is the one that is more often being targeted at the moment. So if you run a campaign today and you do the same analysis, you might find that the games here are different. Maybe, you know, there's a new one that is more popular. You might see it here. So you could also use these search buttons to direct or to inform law enforcement onto which gaming services they can start targeting with the ads. And the second pattern is the one in greenish, yellowish. All these words interrelated to each other. This is an intertwined network of words, of terms. All these relate to borders. And they're, you know, if you follow the arrows, you can make complete sentences. DDoS tool online, best booter, free download, most reliable, stressor, etc. Right? This is actually a representation, a visual representation of what is called a Markov chain. This is what some large language models use to generate information. And this is a model that is based only on the previous word. So if you start with DDoS, the next most likely word is Anvil, right? So this is also what's going on. Why is this important? Not only because it's pretty, right? The graphs are pretty. This is also important because it provides information about pathways into cybercrime, current information. It tells something about how cybercriminal interests and techniques evolve. It tells us a little bit about which kind of wording is used in cybercrime communities, which could be important to develop communication strategies. And it might even be useful for operational purposes to identify active booters. So maybe next wave operation power off, we feed police with the information we got about active booters, they can take them down. And this is also good for improving the targeting of the campaigns, because we want the campaigns to be more accurate so as to be less intrusive. We don't want to target just everybody with these campaigns, just the population that is actually at risk, and this information is telling us who is more at risk. So it can be the information can be used to better target the campaigns, and in the end also make them more sustainable, because if you find the right terms, they may be cheaper. The campaigns might be cheaper to maintain, because some terms, like for example DDoS in general, this is a term that you probably cannot skip, but DDoS is a term that is used for advertising. But many cybersecurity companies that offer DDoS protection, for example, right? But there might be specific keywords, for example, aanval in Dutch, that you want to use in the Netherlands, and the cost of maintaining that keyword is cheaper if you use the Dutch term than if you use the English one, because competition is lower, right? So we can also use these kind of terms to help law enforcement spend less money, less public money on these campaigns. All right, so this is about people searching and the searches. Now, which ads are more engaging? Which ads generate more engagement? We have a paper out about this, so if you are interested, please reach out. There's a free copy. There's always a free copy of all the papers that I publish in my website, so you can also look into that. What we did to answer that question in this paper was to design a quasi-experiment. So it's good that we already explain how online ads work, because now you probably see it more clearly. So we would expect in this design that specific set of users that we're targeting use a specific set of predefined keywords that we think are risky. For example, how to DDoS is one of the 123 keywords that we used. In those keywords, there are also, for example, active booters that we need to active by then. So we expect users to enter one of these keywords, and then we assign them to 4 different types of ads. The 4 I showed at first. The one about DDoS ruins it for everybody, DDoS attacks are illegal. And then these ads rotate and are divided into groups. Depending on which group you land, you end up in one or the other landing page. The one that was more formal, with the designed in collaboration with the police, or another one that was more informal, that was designed with the gaming industry, with ESL. So which was the best communication strategy? If we look then at the ads again, we assigned some labels to the ads. So we call this the social ad, the deterrent ad, the informative one, the reorienting one. The one that generated most engagement was the social ad. Interesting, why? Because this is usually the type of messaging that the police uses for crime prevention purposes, for deterring people. Police tend to say, this is illegal, there's a fine attached to it, you're going to end up in jail, you know. But for some people, maybe for young people who have stipulated different roles for authority, a social message like, you know, your peers will be mad at you, might be more important to them, or you know, in this case, getting more engagement. They were more interested in the ads, spend more time in the pages. All right. So now, do these ads actually reduce DDoS attacks? Not a big crowd. You can always check it. This one was tricky because how do you evaluate one such campaign, a national campaign? When your object of study is something that is international, knows no boundaries, cybercrime, you probably heard this a lot, right? I can launch an attack from Spain to the Netherlands and from the UK to, I don't know, to Italy, right? If the campaigns are only active in the Netherlands, how will we measure its effects, the effects in DDoS attacks? It's difficult, right? So then we were faced with two challenges. The first one was targeting, and I think we addressed quite well. So we needed to reach the right population. If you just reach everybody and not the people that will be offending, you might not see an effect. The second challenge is attribution. We have to identify the origin and the target of the DDoS attacks, because that's how you make the measurement. And there's not much research about this. There's anecdotal evidence about it. Jair Santana wrote his thesis about booters. Very interesting research if you're interested in this area. And in one recent analysis, he looked at a data dump from the stressor booter. So the information of the booter, I can't remember what happened, whether it was leaked or was taken over by the police and then the data was given to this guy, I don't know. And he identified that 50% of the attacks targeting the Netherlands originated also in the Netherlands. So there's also a local component to this attack. We always think, no, this thing is just international. This, it's people just launching attacks from one country to the other. But a huge portion of it is just from one country to the same country, at least in the case of the Netherlands. And now the assumption that we had to make to evaluate the effect of this campaign is called the parallel trends. Okay, so in the absence of treatment, if we hadn't deployed the ads, the DDoS attack trend in the long term, right, over time, would have remained the same and parallel between the countries that we're comparing and the country which we are intervening. Was this clear? I'll say, yeah? So maybe this is clear. So when you measure cybercrime over time, imagine it depicts an increasing trend in the country you are treating, but in the country in which you will deploy the ads. There has to be also the same trend, similar trend in a country in which you don't implement the ads, so that when you implement the ads, the variation you see, you can attribute to the ads and not to some exogenous factor. Yeah. Okay. So we use data from the Cambridge Cybercrime Center. They are the group in the UK that is doing research on the campaigns by the National Criminals and all the campaigns, also by government and police. Interesting research. So we got the data they collect and identified in the data, selected in the data the countries in which the campaigns would be deployed as part of this international law enforcement operation. So Portugal, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And we selected similar countries to the other ones, as they are also European and developed countries, that also depicted similar DDoS trends, so that the parallel trends assumption, so that we found could find support for the parallel trends assumption. So then we created a treatment group and a control group, and then we could compare. What we saw is this. In this graph, horizontal axis, the weeks since the campaigns were active. Don't mind the numbers. What you need to know is that in the gray area is when the campaigns were active. Per country, And in the vertical axis, the DDoS attack estimates. So, if the DDoS attack is higher than the average, this country has experienced in that time more DDoS attacks than compared to the control. Yeah. So, what we were expecting is that in the shaded area, in the gray area, this trend was like here, was below, because this country, when the campaigns were active, had experienced comparatively much less attacks, fewer attacks. What we see is that there's pretty much no effect of the campaigns in most cases, except in the Netherlands. Funny story. Second campaign, we see an increase, an overall increase in the DDoS attacks. This was not easy to communicate to law enforcement, as you can imagine. And in Portugal, we see a decrease. But here, we're comparing these periods, right? Treated period compared to non-treated period. You could also look at trends, and this is what we do with these lines here. If you look at trends, the story is slightly different, but I would say it's not enough to say, oh, the campaigns had a clear effect. Because what I wanted to see is something like this. So you see a straight line, and then a straight line here, but reduced. I would have liked to see this, way lower, to claim that, okay, there was an effect. There might be an effect, and I'll go into it. So for us, and we reported it like this in the paper, it is unclear that the online campaigns had an effect in reducing DDoS attacks, because and here there are ways. This is also, we shared the paper before publication with all the researchers, and they were like, you don't want to publish this as null results. You probably, I think there was an effect. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I have to be, I have to be honest with what I see, but I understand this is open to interpretation. Maybe all the person sees this and thinks, yeah, maybe it had an effect. So maybe the other person would have reported it in a different way. But especially because there was different opinions, we wanted to be conservative, because there was we felt we had lots of responsibility in communicating these findings. So it's also true that we only looked at the short term. Perhaps in the long term, when you look years ahead, there's an effect, right? How do you measure that? Don't ask me, I don't know. Another reason the effect wasn't clear could be that there's noise in the data. Because the data was collecting DDoS attacks in general, and not just DDoS attacks by young people interested in gaming, right? So maybe the campaigns had an effect on a subset of the population. We couldn't filter out the DDoS attacks by selecting specific targets or specific attackers, because a limitation of data. So we don't know. Maybe it's noisy, maybe it's not, and there's no effect. And it might be the case that there's, deterrence in cyberspace just doesn't work. And there have been arguments in this line that people behind their computers don't feel the same effects when they see an ad by the police. They are sitting in their houses saying, yeah, I don't care. Right? They don't feel the pressure, they don't feel the certainty, they don't feel the risk. It's fair to say that the UK researchers found an effect. Why? We think it really harmed this. I thought it was because when they evaluated the campaigns in the UK police was also running offline operations in parallel with the campaigns. So they were also handing in cease and desist letters and arresting specific offenders that were particularly prolific. And in the European countries, in the rest of the European countries, they only implemented the campaigns. So there was no accompanying offline intervention to it. So maybe if there was an effect, it was due to the combination of both strategies, right? Okay, and then there's a question, the question remains, should police use ad campaigns to counter cybercrime? It's only fair to say the campaigns reach thousands at low cost. So this is, if you want to reach a lot of people with a preventive message, with a general prevention message, this is a very nice way of doing so. Greg Francis, one of the pioneers in this area, say that one of the reasons is to pay now, not to pay later. So we pay now to have the ads deployed, not to pay later the consequences of cybercrime, right? He might also mean that we pay now, so maybe we can convince Google that they can run their own ad campaigns and we don't have to pay for them. Then, landing the responsibility to the private sector as well a little bit. And anyway, what does it mean that the campaigns work? It can be many things. I have a slide later that I'll just leave open for discussion. But here we looked at whether they reduce the volume of DDoS attack. You can also look at whether they reduce the duration of attacks, the intensity, whether they raise awareness in cybercrime communities, whether people talk about it or not. There are many ways in which you could say, depending what your aim is, you could say, yeah, campaigns might have worked, might have not. So what's next? I forgot I had this, but this is super interesting, so I'll go through it. So there was, like I mentioned, there's also cybercrime tutorials in YouTube, and we want to also look into the platform to try to move the prevention strategy there. Don't mind this. So we want to use a similar design that we use for Google, right? So there are two types of many types, but two main types of ads that you can use in Google. Those that you can click away, those that you cannot, that you have to watch entirely. You can also use different ways of messaging people. You can use the classic deterrent message and the socializing message. I'll show you what I mean. And there are different crime types that you can target with the ads. The DDoS attacks that we just explained with the booters. And there's also hacking as a service. So you can also use remote access tools. So with this design, we could try to look at what's the combination that generates the most engagement. So, looking at the messaging, let's look at what the deterrent message looks like and the socializing messages look like in YouTube. First, the deterrent message.
Dus jij wil een DDoS uitvoeren. Jij kiest, wij kijken mee. Word je cybercrimineel of cyberprofessional?
Deterrent message, clear, right? The cop telling you that, we're going to arrest you. And the social message, was it clear? So, you choose, because we are watching, you can choose to be a cybercriminal or a cybersecurity professional. This focused deterrence approach.
Het DDoS-aanval op school raakt ook nabijgelegen ziekenhuis.
Ambulancesysteem ligt plat.
Jij kiest. Word je cybercrimineel of cyberprofessional?
So, in this case, what the ad says is a DDoS attack launched at a school also affected the network of a hospital, so the ambulance cannot receive calls, and there's one person dying in the street because the ambulance doesn't arrive. Dramatization. But yeah, and then the structure is the same. You choose, do you want to become a cybercriminal or a cyber professional? So yeah, I just have some thoughts for general discussion that we're not going through. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask. I'll be happy to answer. And if you don't want to, you can always reach out at my email, Twitter, or look at my personal website. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Asier, and sorry we had to wrap up.
No problem.
We have 10 minutes now for Q&A, so you are all welcome to ask questions.
So, with the addition of tools like ChatGPT and Bard, where we have generative AI that gives people suggestions on how to carry out a DDoS attack, maybe a give suggestion, or like other methods of cybercrime. How do you think the pathway to cybercrime is going to get affected in the future, and what we can do for AI policies or any kind of regulations that we can get to control this?
That's a good question. What we see is that the cybercrime landscape evolves constantly. New technologies bring new pathways, like you said, AI, the new pathway. I also looked at at AI, whether we could find cybercrime services through AI. And now it's getting better, but when it started, you could simply ask, what websites should I avoid if I don't want to, encounter cybercrime services? And then, oh, you should avoid GitHub and because, right? And they ended up providing a list of phishing kits, so phishing as a service, right? I couldn't replicate that, but if people, if people find a way of cracking the AI, of social engineering the AI, yeah, it could provide a pathway. That's yeah. I think one way of countering that is of course improving. If they are already working in that, they're improving the way they respond to such queries. Technology is advancing fast, but in general, at first I'm quite pessimistic. In the new technology will always allow for new cybercriminal opportunities, and in the end, when we are able to, we figure out how to stop that more or less, then this new thing coming and this new pathway. So I think it's for the most part, it's often just patching, putting small patches in specific opportunities. But this is not sustainable in the long term. So yeah, different strategies we should also look at different strategies like the fisherman paradox. So while some people worry about fixing quickly a problem, others should start looking at the root causes of the problem and try to address that more in the long term. But both are important. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, so it's pretty much about when it comes down to these campaigns, are you going more for the approach of deterring, or is it more redirection in regards to sending them towards maybe like going and doing capture the flag and going and doing something more into cyber protection?
Yeah, we try to do both. So initially it's like, so the approach is know that this is illegal, know that this has consequences. Also for you, you can end up in jail. And here are some alternatives for you. And then here's where we put the pro-social alternative to capture the flags. So it always has a reorienting component. It's not just deterrence. It's deterrence plus reorienting, always, yeah.
So one of my questions is, at some point there is a policy decision to go the advert route rather than engage with Google and manage their CEO policies, so you don't get the results that you're looking for to begin with. Why is that policy decision taken?
I would say because Google doesn't cooperate. As quick answer is Google doesn't cooperate. I know several law enforcements have been trying to cooperate with Google for a long time, and there are ongoing talks. So maybe this changes in the future. We hope it changes in the future. But for now, yeah, campaign started in 2017. It's 2023, and we haven't convinced Google yet that this is something important they should address. Like for example, they address CSAM material, child sexual exploitation material, right? They do that very well. Why don't they do something like that for bullying or for remote access Trojans or whatever, right?
Well, that would be really interesting because the Online Safety Act has got Royal Assent in October this year, and companies and tech companies have now got responsibility to remove harmful material, particularly for the demographic part of this, your study, and children in general. And the fines are massive if they don't do it. It can be up to 10% of their turnover, or up to however many million. So they've got a responsibility to do that. But it would be interesting to know if it filtered through the advert that these companies are putting, allowed to go onto their platforms as well. So I don't know if the companies themselves have a responsibility not to do it, but if they have adverts piggybacking on the back of it, whether they have any kind of responsibility for that as well. Because it's harm to children, isn't it, ultimately?
And society at large.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now the Online Safety Act has come on, and how companies take responsibility.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, interesting.
Just to follow that point, I was curious if this is more of a legal and legislation question. How is it, I think you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, that it is illegal to conduct a DDoS attack, but why is it not illegal to manufacture a program that does it and or sell said program? Or is this something that you've already thought and goes, of course?
No, it's a good question, but I think it's difficult to tell. It's difficult to draw the line at some point.
Mm-hmm.
When you're developing software, it can, potentially, be modified for nefarious purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And who's to blame? The one who developed the initial piece of software, some contributor helped to push the line a little bit, or the one that finally added something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also, like I said, so the administrators of the water services try to legitimize themselves by saying they run stressors and not waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it also depends on with which motivation you have when you use one of these services.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, I'm going to use one water to stress the protection of my own company or the university, and everybody's informed and aware, this is a great service, right? But it's very difficult to tell. In these cases, in the case of waters, there's plenty of evidence suggesting that these are being used for criminal purposes. But in general, I don't know. Good point as well. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Yeah,
Thanks. So thank you very much for the presentation. It was really interesting. I don't know anything about cybercrime, and I learned a lot from your talk, so thanks very much. I had a very quick question from a methodological point of view. There was a very interesting diff design. What was your estimation strategy? Did you use two-way fixed effects?
Yeah, so we used the two-way fixed effects for looking at the periods after and before the intervention. And we also looked at long-term effects. Can't you remember the name of the model?
Yeah, that was my follow-up question.
Yeah.
If you look, and everything was monthly?
Weekly.
Weekly.
Weekly, yeah. So because in crime it's important to take into account weekends as well because of changes in routine activities. So we wanted to use the week as a measure, as a temporal unit of temporal unit. Yeah. Yeah, and when we looked at long terms, we also have p-values and all that for those. But I think that if you look at the estimates, there was also something I was really careful with. This campaign is pretty good. Estimates with short error bars, right? More or less pretty much in line. And so you can tell that the estimates that you're going to get here are more reliable than, for example, this that goes like up and down. So I didn't want to. I avoided to draw strong conclusions from this analysis, from the long-term analysis. So I pretty much looked more at the two-way fixed effects. Yeah.
I think we can wrap up now. Thanks again, Asier, for coming.